everyone, so welcome back to my channel. I hope we're all doing very well today. I'm very kind of casual, cozy sitting on the sofa here in my comfies because we're gonna have just a bit of a chill chat about my favourite thing, books. This is gonna be the first book video of the year and hopefully not the last as well. I don't really think I talked about books much at all last year here on my channel, but that's something I want to change. Not only do I want to give myself more time to read, I also want to talk about it here more. So I thought we'd start off 2020 with kind of a bit of a book to be read resolution type video. I already have set myself a goal to read a book a month this year, which seems like a very small amount, but last year I managed 4 in total, which is quite shocking. So I thought I'd set the bar low, and if I go higher than that, then well done to me. Not only do I love to read books, but I also love to buy them as well. It's a bit of a rush and it's a bit of a bad habit. So I've kind of told myself that before I start, buying new books to read this year, I'm going to just try and get through all the ones I already own. That seems the most sensible to me. And then I can keep the ones I love, pass on the ones that anybody else wants to read and I don't want to hang on to. So what I've done is kind of gone through my bookshelf and picked out, I think I've got 15 or 16 books here that I plan to read in 2020. I am going to go through them all now with you guys, more to just keep myself accountable for actually sticking to my resolution. So hopefully we can come back at the end of the year or sometime later and I will have read all of these. I'm just going to talk through each one. I've kind of put these in a bit of an order, starting with books that I have half read. I'm such a bad person for doing this. I'll start off a book and then I'll get distracted by something else. I'll start reading something different, or I'll read something and not kind of be too into it. And I'm not the sort of person that can just quit reading a book. I'll, leave it for a year and a half and promise myself that I'm coming back to it, but I can't ever just give up and say, no, I'm done with this. So I have a few here that I've been reading on and off, a couple that I really have struggled to get into. And these are the ones I'm going to try and just clear out of the way first. So book number 1, we have, this is actually the third of a trilogy. It's the Philip Pullman His Dark Materials series, and this is the Amber Spyglass. I got really into reading these at the end of last year. I read the first and the second one very, very quickly. I am sure at some point in my childhood I read all of them, although there are so many things that I don't remember, especially in this third and final book. Which I'm now kind of wondering if I did manage to get all the way through. So it kind of is like reading it for the first time because there's a lot going on that I don't remember or possibly never even did read. I really enjoy these books. I feel like my generation, you either read Harry Potter or you read His Dark Materials. I read both. Obviously Harry Potter was number 1, but they're actually a lot more distressing than I remember and a lot more adult, I'd say, than Harry Potter. Some of the themes and the language and the complexity of the plot I feel like is a lot more adult than Harry Potter ever was. So maybe that's why I sort of struggled to read them when I was younger. But I'm really enjoying it now because of that. It definitely feels like something I can identify with at the ripe old age of 27. I was going to say 26 then, but no, that's not right anymore. So yes, I'm probably going to read this one first. The only reason I stopped is because Christmas got in the way and there was just too much going on, but I have really enjoyed it so far. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to finishing that one. So the second book I am planning to read is from Elizabeth Strout, and this is Olive Kitteridge. I got the sequel to this for Christmas, so I thought I would pick up the first one, obviously, to read first. And this book is about Olive Kitteridge, who is indomitable, compassionate, and often unpredictable. She's a retired school teacher in a small coastal town in Maine. I haven't got too far through this. I think I'm on 3rd or 2nd chapter. If I'm being honest, it's very slow to begin with. I'm reading this mostly at night, so that might be why I might just be a bit too sleepy to get into it. But I'm struggling to want to get to the next chapter. But I've heard so many great things about it that I obviously will be persevering. I think towards the end it's supposed to get really, really great. So far, there's not much about Olive in it, so I feel like it's a story told through other characters in her life. But I do like the setting of Maine. Stories set in New England for some reason always seem to really pull me in. So I do have high hopes for this one. So next we have Milkman. I think I actually picked this up in 2018 because it was the year that it won the Man Booker Prize, which, I expected very good things from. I think this book is supposed to be absolutely genius. I was really excited to get into it. I think I started reading it the second I bought it, but it's very, I'd say it's very draining. It's almost written in a continuous flow of consciousness. There's not really any like breaks in it. The chapters are really long too, and the subject matter is actually quite heavy as well. Again, this is one that I've maybe got 2 or 3 chapters into, which is a considerable amount more than most books would be. But I think I had to give up in the end because my brain, it was just too much for me to kind of keep going with. Like I said, I do hate to not finish books, so I really want to end up getting through this. Clearly from the awards it's won and the response it's had, this is going to be a fantastic book. I just need to persevere. If anybody's read this and has any tips, please do let me know. So the next one, I actually have a hardback here. I don't usually buy hardbacks, despite them being undeniably beautiful. This one, in fact, is a very gorgeous book. I love the artwork on the cover here. So this is 3 Women by Lisa Taddeo. This book really confused me to begin with because it reads like fiction. It's based around the lives and the stories of 3 women told, you know, during various parts of their lives. The dialogue and the interactions and just the inner thoughts of all the characters really does lead you to believe that it's just a story, but actually it's something like 8 or 10 years work on behalf of Lisa Taddeo, who went around the country or the US and gathered these women's stories together to compile this book, which I think is just a massive feat to undertake. The main kind of theme in this, and the thing that really ties all the women together, is just the question of desire, sexuality, what it means to be a woman, how we interact with other people in our lives, and what it all really means and boils down to, which is incredibly interesting. This I actually flew through when I started to read it. I'm about halfway through. I read that in one afternoon. I'm actually even halfway through a chapter. I didn't even get to the end of a chapter. It's just a book that I was reading and then something else came up and I never kind of got back into. I do find I have to really push myself back into a book no matter how much I'm enjoying it. If I come out of it, I do struggle to get back in. I think that's why I'm basically like a one-day reader. I like to sit down with a book, nothing else is going on, and just plow through it in as quick a time as possible. I think I just like it when the story isn't broken up and I can just read it all in one go. So they are all the books that I'm kind of halfway through, and then we have the kind of fresh meat and the new material. This is one of the newer books, or the most recent books that I purchased. This could be my last book purchase of the year until I actually finish everything else that I own. This is Where the Crawdads Sing. I picked this up in a service station on the way to Scotland because I wanted something to read. Loved the cover of this, was completely drawn in. And this is set in North Carolina in late 1969. I think this is a little bit of a mystery coming of age story, but I've heard that the writing is just very like evocative of nature, and that is one of my favorite things in books, when you're just absolutely thrown into a setting, when you can like feel the heat of the sun on your skin, when the writing is so descriptive that you can picture so clearly where everything is going on, and you just get transported into like a different world. That is what I love about books, and this one in particular is supposed to be very much like that. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. I think maybe it's like a good summer book to pick up a little bit later in the year. Also something that I did plan to read last summer but never got around to it, so I think this time around I might try it then, is Florida by Lauren Groff. This is a collection of short stories, I believe, all set in Florida, and again I think it's going to have that very transportative feel to it. It's really going to feel like I'm in Florida and all this is happening around me. I don't know too much about what these are about, but it's one that I've heard a lot of good things about too. The next book on the pile is Olive Again. This is the sequel to Olive Kitteridge from Elizabeth Strout. I love this book cover. I love the mustard and the blue and the little like illustration on the front. It's beautiful. So hopefully, this one actually seems a little bit shorter, or it might just be the formatting and the font is a bit smaller. Hopefully once I get through Olive, I'll read this one. I might leave a little bit of a gap between the two depending on how easy it is for me to get through the first one. But if I love it and I'm, you know, totally hooked by the end, I'm sure I will launch myself straight into it. Next is a book that I feel like I've been meaning to read for such a long time. This is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. It's very like world renowned. It won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction 2014, which I'm guessing is when it came out, so a little while ago. It basically centers around the story of Theo Decker, who I think loses his parents in some kind of tragedy, and how his life unfolds after that. I think this is supposed to be quite dark and quite intense, but the story is apparently very, very gripping. So I'm not usually one for these kind of like psychological thriller-y type books, which I'm guessing it is along the lines of, but I do like something that is gripping, that's for sure. When a story is really just like, I need to know what happens next, I think I'll really, really enjoy it no matter like the actual genre. So yes, that is The Goldfinch. I'm very much into the idea of nonfiction, but I do struggle to end up picking them up and really getting into them. But I've kind of set myself a target of 2. I have 2 here. The first one is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, who is the author of Eat, Pray, Love. I've never actually read Eat, Pray, Love. Maybe I should do that. But this one is supposed to be all about creativity. Creativity in the sense of absolutely anything. So no matter how you are creative in your life or in your work, no matter how small or big that part plays, there's always a different way to look at it, and that's supposed to be what this book covers. I think this could be really helpful and interesting for me because my job is quite a creative one. I guess I am constantly creating and having to find new ways of doing that, and I feel like this could be a really good perspective shifter, or just something to give me some new ideas and inspiration on how I go about doing that. So that is Big Magic. And then also very relating to what I do here, we have Why Social Media is Ruining Your Life by Catherine Ormerod. Social media obviously plays a part in pretty much every single person's life now, which is quite a dramatic turn to maybe 10 years ago. People that are growing up nowadays, it's pretty much like all they've ever known. I'm kind of on the cusp of that generation because I do remember a time without Facebook and Instagram and things like that, but I was very much like an MSN Messenger girl every night, straight home from school onto MSN to talk to all the same people. Now, obviously, I've managed to make myself a job for it, which is incredible because it's something you could never have imagined all that time ago, even existing. But social media is tough, I think, whether you're just on it, you know, as the average person flicking through, talking to your friends, or you are an influencer, or someone that's very much seen online. It really can get to you in so many ways, and ways that you would never even have realized, just subconsciously there all the time. So I'm really interested to read this actually. I think there'll be a lot of things that I agree with in here, maybe even some things that I haven't noticed and that might have a little bit of a mind blow moment. Either way, it's one that I'm actually quite excited to read, so maybe this will be coming up relatively quickly on my to read list. So the last little pile I've put together is actually books that I'm not sure when I'm going to get around to reading, although I do want them to be this year, but they're all from authors, or they're all books that I have been meaning to read for so long, and I feel like I can't put it off any longer. This year is going to be the year. I'm going to start with this book here, which is one of the more beautiful things I own. This is Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray, and what's special about this is actually one of the cloth-bound classics from Penguin. I have been collecting these for a little while, and I actually got this one for Christmas, which I was very lucky to receive, and I have quite a decent amount of them now. They're absolutely beautiful, especially all stacked together, but I don't think I've read more than 1 or 2 of them. Obviously they're all classics, so you have things like Vanity Fair, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility. I've got The Jungle Book, I've got some Thomas Hardy. They're all books that are quite different from the types that I'm talking about here. Obviously they're all classics, they're all written in a slightly different way, and they're all from a different time. But that is something that I really want to do this year. So I'm going to start with this one, which is Vanity Fair, which I think I've been meaning to read my entire life. It is huge. I can't even, let's see how many pages this actually is. 865 in potentially the world's smallest print. I've got more of a modern fiction here. This is Normal People from Sally Rooney. I've been meaning to read some Sally Rooney for such a long time. I want to read everything she's written because I've heard that everything is just great. I think Normal People is a good place to start. This was longlisted for the Man Booker Prize in 2018, and this is the only book of hers that I actually currently own. I feel like this is something I could absolutely blitz through in a day and just be completely like into. I am guessing quite a lot of people, particularly watching this video, may have read this because it was very, very popular last year or the year before. But it all centers around normal people and friendships, fascination, love, how we learn about all of that, how it affects our lives, and the different ways in which we need it. So I think this will be a really great one and something really interesting, and hopefully the start of my Sally Rooney obsession, who knows. Next we have a Kazuo Ishiguro book. This is The Remains of the Day. I do have one more, I think I've got Never Let Me Go, but after watching the film with Keira Knightley, I'm not sure I will ever be able to read that book because it's so heartbreaking. Ishiguro is an author that I've always wanted to read and never have. This is a winner of the Booker Prize. The Remains of the Day is a very famous book. In the summer of 1956, Stevens, the aging butler of Darlington Hall, embarks on a leisurely holiday that will take him deep into the countryside and into his past. I am sure this is made into a film, or has been made into a film, with Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson, potentially. Am I imagining that? I really want to read this because it's just an author that I've always wanted to read something from. I think this is probably a good place to start. Along the same lines of that, an author that I have always wanted to get into and read is Murakami. I have got here Killing Commendatore. Commendatore. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. I'm not sure this is his most famous or well received, but it may be one of his newer books. I know that Norwegian Wood is a really big one that maybe I should have started with because I don't think it's quite this long. Let me know if that's a better place to tackle Murakami from. Whenever I pick up one of his books or read about it, I always feel very confused and like there's just an element of mystery, and the only way that I'll be able to understand that is to read one of them. So I feel like I can't really describe this or talk too much about it. I think it's more of just once you've read something from him, you get it. So hopefully that will be me this year, whether it's through this book or a different one. But again, an author that I just absolutely want and have to tick off my to-read list. Have we ended up with this last? I think this is the final book. It's A Little Life. Of the few book videos that I have done in the recent months and years, I've mentioned this quite a few times. I think I do it more to kind of egg myself on than anything, because A Little Life is supposed to be one of the greatest books, greatest stories ever written, if not one of the more tragic and harrowing ones. Somebody had read this recently and said it was the most beautiful and incredible story, but it was so tragic that they didn't really get the point of it. Was all the pain worth it? And that is just another one of the reasons that I get really put off from picking this up. But I want to read it, and I have decided that 2020, the start of the decade, is the year that I'm going to read A Little Life. You heard it here first. Once again, any tips will be very well received. I'm thinking like breaking this up every chapter with a massive bar of chocolate and an episode of Friends, something along those lines. But I do want to read this so very badly because I know it's going to be one of those stories where you're so drawn in by the characters that you kind of end up thinking about them as you're going about your own life, and they just really, really stay with you, which may make it even more terrible and tragic when something bad happens to one of them. But nonetheless, I think it's just such an important thing to read, and one that I absolutely have to. So that is my final to-be-read book of the year. It may be the first, it may be the last, but we will see. So that is it. Those are all the books that I want to read and will be reading in 2020. If I say it here, I have to do it. If I manage to get through all of those, I will have smashed my reading goal for the year, which will make me very happy. So I think I need to average out about 1.5 books a month to do that, which sounds, it it sounds doable. So if you guys have read any of these, if any of them are your favourites, let me know down below in the comments, or if you have any suggestions for things that you think I may enjoy reading as well, so that hopefully I can start a new list of things for when I have gotten through all of these. I do have a Goodreads account if you want to keep up with me there. I'm trying to update it a little bit more frequently. At the least you'll be able to tell what I'm currently reading at the moment, so that is going to be linked down below as well. I think it's just I Covet Thee, my username. So I'm going to go and edit this video and then read a book, because it seems only right. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you want to see more book videos coming up, and I will see you all soon. Bye.